Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cutting through all the noise, the management trends, the quarterly results.
Right.
We're going to explore what our source material calls the uncomfortable truth of leadership.
Yeah, and this isn't about strategy or, HR policy.
No, we are drilling down into the internal landscape of the person who's actually running the show.
That's absolutely right. The research we've gathered, it highlights this widespread challenge in modern organizations.
Which is what
It's
exactly?
that you have these outwardly successful leaders who are fundamentally struggling.
They're hiding it.
They are. They show symptoms like burnout hidden behind productivity, or they'll confess to feeling, painfully alone despite leading large teams.
And in the worst cases.
In the worst cases, we see moral failure camouflaged by charisma.
And the diagnosis from our sources is so surprising. It's that these problems, they almost never come from a bad business plan.
No, or a bad quarter. They
Mm.
come from a deeply neglected internal condition.
So that's our mission for this deep dive.
It is. We want to unpack the transformative roadmap for what the sources call inside-out leadership.
And the core insight is so simple, it's almost deceptive.
It is that enduring, ethical, effective leadership. It doesn't start with the external stuff. Not titles, not position, not authority.
It starts with the leader's inner life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their identity, their values, their spiritual grounding.
And if you look at the patterns in the texts, this holds true everywhere, whether it's historical figures or modern case studies.
It's a consistent truth,
The construction of a true leader is always from the inside out.
always. Before you're entrusted with influence, humility has to be crafted. Before you can handle the public battles.
You have to be prepared in those private, difficult places, those private wildernesses.
It's all about building the internal infrastructure first. The materials argue, and I think really convincingly, that all the external success, it's just an overflow of that internal transformation.
So if the root system is rotten,
The fruit will inevitably fail. It's just a matter of time.
okay, let's unpack that. That central tension, which one source calls the uncomfortable truth.
Right.
You can be incredibly productive, successful in the outer world of roles and results.
While completely collapsing in the inner one
That hidden disconnect feels so risky.
is profoundly risky. It creates a leader who might carry authority on the outside and insecurity on the inside.
Just think about what that means, the practical implications of leading from insecurity.
Every decision becomes a validation exercise.
Right. Every challenge is a personal attack.
Exactly.
So leadership based on external validation is it's brittle.
So brittle. If your stock price drops, if you lose a key client,
If a project fails.
your sense of self just goes right down with it.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Right.
And the analysis we reviewed is so insistent on this point. Identity shapes leadership.
Meaning if your security is in your title or your performance.
It's unsustainable because titles and metrics, they're fleeting, they come and go.
So sustainable, enduring influence has to be rooted in something else.
It has to be rooted in identity, in security in who you are, totally separate from what you accomplish.
So how does that play out with the leaders cited in the texts? I mean, it seems like formation always comes before promotion.
It's the essential pattern. You look at the story of Joseph. He was given these prophetic dreams long before he received authority.
The vision was there.
The vision was clear, but he had to spend years in pits and prisons, years of, obscurity and testing.
So the inner scaffolding had to be built first.
Exactly. It had to be strong enough to handle the pressure of ruling an entire nation. The authority was delayed until the character could actually match the calling.
Or someone like Moses, he had leadership in him. He was brilliant from his time in Pharaoh's court.
But the wilderness had to form him. He had to be stripped of that royal identity.
And spend decades just as a shepherd.
In total dependency, before he could lead others out of their dependency.
David, too, he's a perfect example.
The perfect illustration. He was anointed king while tending sheep, not sitting on a throne.
So for over a decade, he had the anointing, but not the position.
And in that time, he learned warfare, diplomacy, and most importantly, humility. Not in a palace.
But on the run in the desert.
Right.
That's such a powerful process. But how does a modern leader apply that? I mean, you're under constant pressure to perform, to accelerate. What's the modern wilderness season?
That's a great question. The modern wilderness is often a period of, deep learning, maybe a big professional setback, or even a failure that forces you to look inward.
So the lesson for you, listening to this,
The lesson is that if you are constantly chasing success just to validate your identity, you will never, ever feel secure, even when you achieve it.
the source suggests that true influence flows from something else.
It flows from internal clarity, not from crushing pressure.
Yeah.
And that is a huge difference between leading from insecurity and leading from a solid identity.
So when a crisis hits,
The identity-grounded leader asks, what is true about this problem? The insecurity-driven leader asks, what does this mean about me?
okay, so if identity is the anchor, then character has to be the next critical piece.
Absolutely.
And the source material defines integrity in a way that's much dupper than just simple honesty.
It does. It defines integrity not as perfection, because, no leader is perfect,
Of course not.
but as alignment. It's that congruence between your values and your actions, between what you say you believe and how you actually behave.
It's described as the unseen strength of a leader.
Yes, foundational to everything else.
I think that connection is so crucial. Integrity is what builds trust. And trust is the ultimate, non-positional form of influence.
Right.
When we see integrity in a leader, it fosters a culture where doing the right thing, being consistent, that just becomes normal.
Exactly. When leaders act in alignment, they build credibility that can outlast any difficult season. And the source makes this powerful distinction. Talent may open doors, but only integrity keeps them open.
That's good. Talent is the temporary currency that gets you noticed.
But integrity is the bank. It holds the lasting value and the real security.
Okay, but this raises an important question, especially today with how visible leaders are. If a leader seems successful, charismatic, but they have a moral blind spot, how long can that weakness really stay hidden?
Not long. The analysis suggests those fracture points are inevitable under pressure.
It's just a matter of when.
Right. And the sources use this powerful contrast from history. Samson had gifting without integrity, and he fell. Joseph had integrity without title, and he rose.
A gifting is temporary, it's conditional.
But integrity is transformative, and it endures. A lack of integrity creates an operational liability, no matter how brilliant your strategy is.
You can't out-strategize a character flaw.
You really can't. And what's fascinating is that the spiritual viewpoint is so insistent that outward appearance is just insufficient.
Yeah, the material kept referencing that ancient principle from 1 Samuel. The Lord looks at the heart.
And that means focusing on moral and spiritual depth, not just on titles or public awards. It forces leaders to look at their motives.
Why are you really doing this?
Are you pursuing growth for impact or for your own ego?
Yeah.
Are you making those tough, ethical calls when nobody is watching?
That's where the leader's unseen strength is really tested.
It's about being whole, being an integrated person, not just being a high-performing one.
So integrity is really the mechanism that translates that inner identity into outward trustworthy action.
Which moves us into the third core principle,
Yeah.
and this is maybe the most counterintuitive one for ambitious leaders.
Surrender.
Surrender.
And this is where it gets really interesting because in most leadership circles, surrender means defeat. It means you've capitulated.
Right.
But the source material frames servant leadership not as weakness, but as power under God's authority.
That's the core paradox. It's perfectly shown by Jesus taking a towel instead of a throne.
Yeah.
True authority, the kind that inspires people and lasts, it begins exactly where self-assurance ends.
So when a leader yields their own control, their own will,
They open themselves up to a clarity and a wisdom that's way beyond their own limited perspective.
so it's not a passive act of giving up.
Not at all.
It's an active posture of dependency, of being receptive.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And without that posture of surrender, every single decision, every strategic choice, every hire, every interaction, it becomes this draining, grueling battle
A battle between...
between calling and ego. When your ego is driving, you have to shoulder the entire burden yourself, every single outcome,
But surrender lets you act with confidence, knowing the ultimate burden isn't yours alone.
which sounds like the secret weapon against burnout.
Right, because you stop trying to power the entire operation yourself.
Absolutely. The material notes that true leadership sustainability is reached when it stops being self-powered.
And that prevents leaders from becoming burned out from the person they pretend to be.
The person who has to always be right, always be in control, always be the smartest one in the room.
To illustrate this idea of enforced surrender, the texts point to these dramatic collapses. You think about Saul's transformation into Paul. His leadership didn't start with a promotion. It started with an enforced surrender.
He was struck blind on the road, totally dependent, helpless. He had to be taught everything again from scratch.
There's a memorable line from one source: "The collapse is the construction of Paul."
That's such a powerful metaphor for all of us.
Mhm.
It shows that sometimes dismantling a leader's self-reliance is the necessary first step for true influence.
We see it with Moses again.
We do. His 40 years in Midian, stripped of all influence, just tending sheep. That was the enforced surrender that prepared him to rely only on divine direction, not on his Egyptian strategies.
So what's the takeaway for you, the listener, who might be in a situation where you feel stripped of influence, or your plan has failed, or you're facing a crisis you just can't control?
The takeaway is perspective. To view that moment of collapse not as an ending, but as the beginning of construction. If you feel like your will is just constantly pushing against this invisible resistance, that resistance might be the very thing asking you to yield control.
So surrender is the path
To receiving wisdom and clarity that is superior to your own exhausted efforts. It transforms a battle into a partnership.
So we've built the foundation: identity, character, surrender. Now let's talk about the result, the outflow of all this internal work.
Yeah,
The ultimate measure of success gets completely redefined here.
it does. The material shifts the focus entirely. It says, a leader's greatest success is often not what they build, but who they build.
So legacy isn't measured in spreadsheets or projects?
No, or titles. It's constructed upon people.
Which is a radical shift from transactional to transformational leadership.
It is.
So if your inner life is in alignment, how does that character actually show up in how you deal with your team?
It shows up through trust. The analysis we looked at says that trust building isn't a soft skill. It's an expression of Christ-like character.
Honesty, empathy, grace.
In action, yes. This relational influence is what creates loyalty, collaboration, psychological safety. And it achieves results far beyond what positional authority can achieve.
Right. People follow a title because they have to.
They follow a person of character because they want to.
That makes the endurance of the leader so vital, too. If success is built on people, you have to be around to finish the job. You have to be resilient enough to weather the storms with them.
Absolutely. The source material points out that spiritual resilience isn't theoretical. It's born in those wilderness seasons.
David fleeing Saul.
Or Paul's imprisonments. These periods of acute pain, they become preparation rather than paralysis.
So the internal alignment you build in the hard times is what makes your leadership sustainable.
Yes, sustainable through adversity, not just in the easy times. You can only give your team confidence when they know your confidence isn't tied to the circumstances.
And finally, this commitment to people leads right to what the sources call the multiplication mandate.
Right.
It's not enough to just lead well.
You have to prepare the next generation to lead even better. Effective leaders intentionally invest in mentoring, in discipleship.
To ensure the transfer of wisdom.
And the cultivation of emerging leaders. They realize their ultimate influence isn't contained just in their own lifetime. They are conduits, not reservoirs.
So if they stop the flow of wisdom,
they stop the legacy.
So the legacy isn't just what the leader achieves, but the depth of the people they empower.
It's about ensuring that influence extends far beyond the time that one person holds the title. It's the highest form of stewardship. God builds leaders who think generationally because they understand their true reward is seeing those who follow them flourish.
So this deep dive has really shown us that to move beyond that shallow kind of success that so often leads to burnout, we have to embrace this inside-out roadmap.
Yeah.
Enduring influence isn't built in those moments of public visibility or, strategic brilliance.
It's built in the years of often unseen obedience, cultivated through humility, authenticity, and courage that's rooted in a transformed inner life.
So if we connect all this to the bigger picture for you, the professional who's striving to make an impact.
The world is just desperate for leaders whose character outshines their charisma, whose humility outlasts their accolades, whose security is founded on who they are, not what they do.
So if leadership is truly an internal transformation, not an external achievement,
then you should ask yourself this. What persistent whisper in your heart, a call toward greater character, deeper humility, or maybe an act of surrender, is God asking you to act on next to align your inner narrative with truth?